All right, we will continue, and then we're going to have at 11 the actual final part. We had mentioned this morning that God has blessed us with every spiritual blessing. You can't imagine what the last blessing is, and it's the one that makes the biggest difference in the church. So I'm already, by the way, in my church, I attend the 8:30 in the morning. I love to come early to church. But I usually don't plan to stay all day. But you're more than welcome to. I created this seminar because it doesn't work. How about that? Yeah, I have to be honest with you. And it doesn't work because every time I've had seminars on friendship evangelism and making friends for Christ, because truly I believe, as we had mentioned this morning, that the most powerful thing that could happen on this earth is putting a Christian beside a non-Christian. Putting a believer beside a non-believer. Putting a person who knows God's Word by someone who needs to know God's Word. Because God uses those opportunities to be able to manifest Himself in powerful ways. And I can tell you time after time that has happened. I can tell you miracle story after miracle story. The pastor, if you ever read Pavel Goya's books, and all those were in the context of reaching out to others because that's what God wants to do. So I created a seminar about something that doesn't work. Is that all right? And we'll look at the challenges. Because after I've done seminars, people will pray, I hold a whole seminar, and then the people will pray, oh, Lord, I don't know what to do. And I go, well, I think we talked about that. But still we're kind of, let's go through this. But first of all, we need to understand the invitation that God has for us. And that is to share in the heart of God for lost people. Amen. I don't think we could ever comprehend it. We will spend eternity understanding why God loved us so much. But a little glimpse of that, I believe, is in this story of the prodigal son. We had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And we had to celebrate. We don't even understand the implications of that. You see, in those days, when a father had an inheritance, the inheritance was divided with both of the sons in equal parts. And that's why the younger son asked for his inheritance, because it already was determined that he would receive it. Is that all right? And so he just asked for it in advance. Now, when the son took his inheritance and he squandered it, when he came back, it posed a real problem for the older brother. Because the calf that they killed belonged to the older brother. Are you with me? It did not belong to the father. It belonged to part of the inheritance that the older brother was getting. And furthermore, did you know that if the younger brother came back, the father would give him half of the older brother's inheritance? So not only did he stand to lose if his brother came back, he was not a happy camper. Is that all right? And I believe that when Jesus told this story, it was in the context of these three parables of the lost coin, the lost sheep, and the prodigal son. And that it had to do with cost and the willingness to pay the price. And so he started out with 1 in 100. Are you with me? And he said to the Pharisees, you're not even concerned if 1 in 100 would be lost, but the shepherd would. And then 1 in what? The next one is the lost coin. 1 in what? 1 in 10. And he said, even if it were 1 in 10, you would not be concerned. Because the odds are now going up. Are you with me? 1 in 10 is a lot more than 1 in 100. You would be willing to lose $1 in 100, but not $1 in 10. And then he said, 1 in 2, you're not even, don't care even then. And he used the strongest. And he made it plain why they didn't care. Do you know why they didn't care? Because in saving souls, it will make you uncomfortable. Because do you know that all of you sit in the same place almost every Sabbath? With a few exceptions. The wandering types. And as soon as pastor does evangelism, the family that is evangelized doesn't know that it's your seat. And so it's always the drama of what will happen when the Smith family shows up and somebody else is in their chair. And so to many people, as soon as people start showing up, it's not their church anymore. It looks different. There's strange people in it. And that would be one of the least costs. Oh, but what about the whole idea of what will start showing up at potluck? And how you deal with that. You understand what I'm saying, right? Because I've been in meetings where somebody says to me, Ed, I'm looking forward to Sabbath celebration, because that's when we invite all the guests to come to Sabbath. And the lady said, I'm going to bring my meat calzone. And somebody from the back yelled and said, we don't eat meat in this church. Poor thing. And I said, you bring it because I'll eat the whole thing. But anyways, things will show up in potluck, right? And what do we do? What do we do? And so we feel uncomfortable. So we put a meat table. How many of churches have put a meat table? They label it meat. It's strange to people. You know why? Because in the world, you don't label the meat. You label the vegetarian. Is that true or not? If you go to the market, who labels meat section? They label the vegetarians because that's the oddity. Are you with me? But then they come here, and guess what? They're the oddity. And I don't know if you think those things through. So these are little things that we have to pay. Are you with me? When the prodigal son comes home. We have to pay out of our inheritance. Because also the prodigal son might even receive a position in the church. And God forbid that. Why, I've been in the church for 30 years and paid tithe. And I don't have a position. And who does this person think that they barely came in the church and now they're maybe leading out in something? That's plain wrong. You know what God says to all of us that might have hang-ups about people? We had to celebrate. We had to celebrate. Because it's not about positions or about losing a seat or about, the potluck table. It's about the son who was not there. And now, if you want to share in the heart of God, there's only one way. Is that all right? And it is not by prayer. Not that I don't believe in prayer. Is that all right? But you can pray as long as you want. You still will not have the heart of God for his lost children. So I'll tell you a story and you'll get how you have the heart of God for his lost children. You see, the story would have been much different if this is the story. A man had 2 sons, and one son, the youngest, asked for his inheritance. And he decided to leave and spend it. The older brother came to him and said, brother, don't do that because I know how hard the world is and you won't find happiness. But the younger brother was stubborn and he left. The older brother, not wanting his younger brother to get lost, accompanied him along the way. He spent some time with him, but finally that was not what he needed to do. So he returned to the home, saddened that the younger brother would not come back home. Every day the father and the brother looked in the distance to see if the younger brother would come, till they finally found out that there was a famine in the land. And the older brother said to the father, Father, I'm going to look for my brother because I know that he might be suffering at this time and he might have a change of heart. And he looked throughout all the city till he found him feeding the pigs. And he said, brother, you need to come home. And the younger brother says, I've spent my inheritance, and if I come home, I'm going to eat part of your inheritance too. And the older brother says, it doesn't matter, you could have it all, but I want you back home. Because you see, our father has been waiting all this time. And no matter what happened, he loves you. They came back home. That evening as they were eating the banquet, the father looked at the older brother and said, thank you for bringing your brother home. Does that story make a difference? See, the only way you'll ever have the heart of God is getting in touch with the younger brother. When you get in touch with people, it doesn't matter how they come dressed to church. Are you with me or not? I'm telling you that when somebody that you invited comes, you don't care if they came in shorts or maybe dressed inappropriate. Now, the rest will care, and they will call the pastor to, do you follow me? How dare, they come to church that way. But you're just happy they're there, is that right? And if they bring a spaghetti with meatball dinner, well, maybe you're not a vegetarian, but just to keep them happy, you'll have meatballs for the first time in your life and then throw up afterwards, or whatever you want to do with that kind of thing. To share in the heart of God for his lost children. You see, everybody's invited, but some will say, so what's the big deal? And we have that. It's an attitude during baptisms. And during baptisms, services get longer, right? At least in most churches, maybe this one not. But every time I read baptisms, I know that the service will be longer. And most people will say, oh, they're going to have baptisms today. Oh. Except for the people who worked with the people that are getting baptized. To them, that Sabbath is a high Sabbath. And you can spend all day here, and they would have joy in their lives. Do you see the difference? Radical difference. Just one thing makes a difference. Whether they were intimately involved in helping people to come to the Father's house. Well, I want to serve the Lord, but I just don't know how to do it. Well, that's valid, and that's the kind of concern. So, if you don't know, this is what I do when I don't know something. And this applies to every aspect of life. So even if it's helping others or looking for a job or the first thing in the morning, listen to God. And so go to a quiet place where you have no distractions. You find that is having to wake up a little earlier. And let me explain. It doesn't matter if nobody's awake. If you are used to having breakfast at 6 o'clock in the morning, and you wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, what is your natural tendency? To prepare breakfast, right? So that when everybody wakes up at 6:30 or 7, they're ready. And if you choose that time, you know what you'll be thinking? Exactly. So it means that you need to just wake up a little earlier when you know that you don't have nothing to do, then that time is just reserved for a conversation between you and God. Some people have told me, well, I'm not a morning person. Can I do it at night? I've tried, folks. It doesn't work as well because at night you're so tired. And all the cares of the world that have come up that day will be in your mind. It's early in the morning when I believe that your mind is the freshest to be able to communicate. And I believe Jesus practiced it that way. So, what are the suggestions? Read a portion of Scripture. And I always get, well, what should I read? Well, here's some suggestions. I actually just read through the Bible, and so I have a portion each day. But if you want a specific one, Psalm 138, experience God's goodness. And this is not the whole psalm, it's the ending of it. The Lord will fulfill his purpose for me. Your love, O Lord, endures forever. Therefore, I will praise you, O Lord, with all my heart. What a wonderful psalm recognizing God's guidance and goodness. And after you read that psalm, pray. And after you pray, listen. And I know some of you are thinking, he's getting into transcendental meditation here. Folks, if God wanted to talk to you, you need to just listen. Is that all right? And so I'm not saying empty your mind. I'm not saying do all this. Just pause for a moment in your thoughts, and God will guide your thoughts, and you'll have different thoughts. Or read Luke 15 and sense his passion for the lost. And look at the passion. But while the lost son was still a way off, our Father sees him and is filled with compassion, and he runs to his son. How many times that when we've done something that we shouldn't, we thought we need to earn God's love? And what we don't realize that as soon as we have the first thought of coming to God, God had already run to meet us. He didn't need to be begged. He didn't need to be coerced. He didn't need to be bought. What a wonderful thought, that that's how much he loves us. That, it's sort of, men have a hard time apologizing. Have you seen that, ladies? Because they're going, well, I'm sorry, but you know why? And then they say, justifying what they did. Or sometimes they just can't say it. They go, I believe that even when you go to God and go, you know what God says? I understand. I love you. Is that all right? He doesn't have to wait for the full apology in the written declaration. Or John 17, accept Jesus' prayer for your life. And look at Jesus' prayer. As you have sent me into the world, I have sent them. And this is Jesus' prayer for his disciples. Very last prayer he had in the upper room. And then ask God to fill your life with peace and to lead you to his laws. This is the most dangerous prayer you'll ever have. It is the most dangerous prayer you'll ever have. It is a prayer that works because now you're actually asking God to do his will in your life. Did you get that one? Now, right, because in no other prayer, listen, if you say, God, I need a Cadillac, how do you have to end that prayer? But your will be done, not mine, right? Because he may not want you to have a Cadillac or a sports bike, right? For every prayer, you have to finish it, but thy will be done. You don't finish this prayer that way. God, lead me to a person that you love, but your will be done. You know what God's going to say? That is my will, actually. So that's the one you don't even have to say your will be done because that's what I'm going to do. And that is a prayer that hits directly to the heart of God. And so he does answer it. And I want to tell you of people who have had that prayer. And so here's Polly. Oh, I have to tell you about Polly. She's such a wonderful lady. Chuck, he's a real member in Madison Church in Madison, Nashville. Sorry, it's the Madison Hospital Church in Nashville, Tennessee. It's a big church, and we had meetings there. Polly is a Presbyterian and has been attending church with her son-in-law and her daughter to the Madison Church for the last 10 years. And Chuck had been praying that Polly sort of take her next step, because I believe Polly is a Christian. Is that all right? And that she was walking with Jesus, but she needed to take her next step in her faith journey. And he prayed for that. Now, it's interesting that Chuck, he came to the meetings because of the next person, neighbors, which I'll talk to you in a moment. But that's the only reason he came, because one of the people he invited came to the meeting, so he wanted to come. And so, because he came, his wife came, and Polly had to come. Are you with me? Because Polly is older, 92 years old actually. And so she accompanies Chuck and her daughter everywhere, even to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And do you know that after 10 years of prayer, Polly stood up to give her life once more to the Lord and accept the next step in her faith journey. And when she was baptized, as she came out of the water, she said, "This is by far the happiest day of my life." Now that alone is a statement. Do you know why? Because when a 16-year-old says this is the happiest day of my life, you kind of doubt, right? Like they're going to have a lot more happy days in their life. But when a 92-year-old says this is by far the happiest day of my life, that is a statement. Are you with me? Because they've experienced life. And if they can say that, surely it's a great occasion. And Polly now is a worshiping person who shares the gospel with others at the age of 92. Seventh-day Adventist, former Presbyterian that loves the Lord. But why did Chuck come to the meetings? Because Chuck started a little program called the Bible Courier Program. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And so they had received a bunch of requests for Bible studies, and he was handing them, because that's the best way to do it, not just mail them, so they can get in contact with people. But he was a little frustrated because he kept on going to a home where nobody was home, and that's kind of frustrating. If you have an address, you're excited about taking them Bible studies, they're never home, you know how that can turn, right? So he had gone 3 or 4 times, and finally he was going to give up. And as he's knocking on the door and he's turning around, a lady comes out of another adjacent, I guess, condominium or whatever, and says, "Do you need something?" And Chuck said, "Well, not really, but are these people ever home? Because I've been here at different times and they never." "No," she says, "they're never at home. It will be a very rare occasion that you'll find them. And she said, but do you want me to give them something when I see them? And he thought for a moment, I don't know, they didn't give me instructions. Are you with me? Because we didn't give instructions on every little detail. And so he's thinking, should I do it, should I not? And he said, well, could you give it to them? He just kind of gave up. And she said, and what is it? And he said, it's a Bible study. And she said, could I have one? How about that, folks? That's Ann Kiefer, by the way. The people he visited, he never met them. But Ann Kiefer started attending the meetings because of the contact that God had provided for Chuck. Are you with me? That was a divine appointment, and he just guided. Because I believe that when you're out there, God is so desperate that he kind of coaxes people to be in your path. And so Ann Kiefer came to the meetings. Now, Ann Kiefer is an interesting lady because, and that's why Chuck attended the meetings, because he's a Seventh-day Adventist. He knows all these things. Why would he ever come to meetings, right? Right. But he had to come because Ann Kiefer, but he brought his mother-in-law, Polly. Now, Ann Kiefer decided to be baptized, and she talked to me, and she said, Ed, you know, I told you I was going to get baptized, but I'm not going to get baptized. And I said, why is that, Ann? Oh, because I told my daughter, and she called me up all worried. And I said, really? Yeah, she looked you guys up. I said, really? Where did she look us up? You know, the source of all knowledge and truth, the internet. And I said, really? Yeah, she said. I said, so what did she find? Oh, she got so embarrassed. She says, I don't want to say it. No, you could tell me. It's all right. And she kind of went, you know. And I go, no. They say you're a cult. You know, she couldn't even get it out. I go, really? A cult? And she goes, yeah. I said, really? Isn't that interesting, Ann? And she said, yeah, and to be honest, I don't want to get into my walk with Jesus on the wrong foot. And I said, that's understandable, Ann. I said, now, it's all right. Just follow the Lord. You go where he leads you. But can I ask you a question, because I'm very curious, I said. She said, sure. I said, now, have you been here? How long have you been at this church? Oh, for about a month now. And I said, and you met people, and you ate with them, and conversed with them. Did you see anybody sucking each other's blood? She said, no. I go, oh, okay. I just want to make sure, you know, because there could be some of that going around where I don't see it. And I said, do they not love Jesus? No, they don't love Jesus. Do they follow something else than the Bible? No. Is there any other thing that you know about cults that you've seen them do? No. Okay, I said, okay. Now, how long has your daughter attended this church? And she says, well, you know, she's never come here. And I said, so she found out on the internet, right? Yeah, she said. Okay, so help me. I don't get it. Help me, because this is hard for me to understand. You would deny what your eyes have seen and your ears have heard, what you have witnessed, to believe something that someone read on the internet? Does that make sense? She looked at me and said, no. Oh, I thought so, because I'm a little confused, I said. And then she thought, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. And she just kept on going. And I said, don't get upset with me. I just asked the question. She said, next Sabbath I'm getting baptized. She said, doesn't make any sense that I would go about by what somebody says when I have seen with my eyes. Well, guess what? The next Sabbath she was baptized, and her daughter came because she was invited. And Ann Kiefer came to visit with me right after the baptism and just whispered and said, my daughter came today. And I said, that's good, Ann. And she met the people, she said. And after she met the people, she said, Mom, you're in the right place. You are in the right place. You just got to meet the people, is that right? All this stuff going around saying things about who these wonderful people are. work associates like Miller, and I don't have time to go over all these, but Rosie's another person that I love dearly because Rosie is an inactive member. We have inactive members in all of our churches. We call them all sorts of bad names, backsliders, deadwood, you know. They're none of those. I haven't ever seen a person slide on their back, and it's very painful unless you do it on a skateboard or something. You get road rash if you slide on your back, but you know, backsliders and deadwood. A person is not deadwood, come on. That's the thing for termites. But anyways, but we have people who, for some reason, they have become disenchanted and don't come to church regularly. And Rosie was that way. She didn't come to church and was kind of discouraged. She would come occasionally. And I'll tell you that she had a reason for her discouragement. I was actually visiting her many times, and I had asked her, Rosie, would you like to do something for Jesus? And she said, I'm not like those other people at church. I go, what other people at church? She says, those that have like positions or teach Sabbath school or do those things. I just basically mind my own business, put up with your sermons, and then leave. I said, that's a good assessment. And she says, furthermore, they're upset with me. And I wanted to find out why people were upset with Rosie, because she was a really nice lady. Well, so I found out and talked to people, and they said, oh, Rosie. She was only 5'1". Is that all right? Not very tall at all. But she says she packed a wallop. You understand that, right? Cassius Clay type of stuff. Muhammad Ali, for those of you. Do you follow me? And I go, you mean Rosie is a boxer? No, they said. One day she was coming out of church. They had a little discussion with Margarita, another lady at the church. Rosie tapped on Margarita's shoulder and actually punched her in the face. Right, like what would happen if in the Fort Wayne church you're coming out of church and somebody pop, right in the face, somebody else. Well, I had to find out if she was a really good boxer. And what I found out was that actually it wasn't that way at all. That Margarita had said something very derogatory about Rosie, and Rosie was very upset. When she came out of church, Rosie tapped her on the shoulder and slapped her. Now, I had to explain to people that in the boxing world, a slap does not count. It's not even a knockout. Are you with me? It's not even you can't count that. I mean, any judge that would, you understand what I'm saying, right? And I'm going, why would we count it? But they didn't understand that. They thought it was like a boom, blow in the face, like 5 points worth in the, no. Well, but they didn't like Rosie. And I said, well, Rosie, it doesn't matter whether they like you or not. I asked you, would you like to do something? He said, I think I answered. And I said, that's fine. I said, Rosie, do you know how to make popcorn? And she got offended. She said, Pastor, even numbskulls know how to make popcorn. You put it in the microwave 4 minutes, and it makes itself, right? And I said, do you like to watch videos? Why are you asking? I said, I'd love to eat popcorn and watch a video with you. She goes, you don't have a house, Pastor? No, I said, I want to come over here. How about that? She says, are you trying to watch a video you shouldn't watch at home in my house? I said, no, it's not that at all. We're going to keep it in the G nature, like general audiences. And she said, what are you up to? I said, well, why don't you invite a bunch of your friends and I'll watch a movie with them in your house. She says, I know not what you're up to. And I said, could you do that? All right. So I said, when are we doing it? And she was putting like a date in 2020. And I said, no, like this week. And she said, well, next Thursday. Well, she suggested Wednesday, but there was a prayer meeting. She said, that's the other thing I don't go to. So we'll do it on Thursday. Thursday, I drive up to her house, and there's a bunch of cars in the street. And I'm thinking somebody's having a birthday party. I didn't think it was Rosie. But I knock on the door, and she opens the door. There's 15, folks. 15 Hispanic American gang members. The real thing. Bandanas, T-shirts, tattoos, dark glasses in a dark room that they wouldn't take off. Some tattoos from prison. And I got nervous because that's not my crowd. Are you with me? Yeah, usually I don't hang around with gangs. I wish I could, but it's not my crowd. So I sat down, and there was nothing happening. They were looking at me. There was silence. I started cracking jokes, and they would not laugh. I'll tell you, I had sweat come pouring down my back. I felt like the Titanic at its last moments. Till finally Rosie shows up, and I go, can I see you, Rosie? And I'm all sweaty, and they're all looking at me like weird. And I said, Rosie, what are you doing? Where's the movie? She said, Pastor, I've been hearing you for the last 15 minutes. I invited these people because the pastor of my church would come and give them Bible study, and you've been telling jokes for the last 15 minutes. I said, sign language would have been good. Just give me, because I'm waiting for the movie. And I said, forget it, and we started having Bibles. That year, we baptized 5. The only problem is I didn't teach them how to get dressed, so they'd come up with their best khaki pants, T-shirts, bandanas, and glasses to church, and a lot of members were a little worried that it was getting overtaken. But anyways, I married two couples in their homes because the weddings were very strange. Is that all right? And so Michael Jackson's Bad was the introit to the wedding. But I'll tell you that having the privilege of just talking, ministering, and praying, I found out something. That when you take away the tattoos and the outer layer, they're all people that are longing for something better. Broken lives. They don't make much difference. Well, I needed to tell you about Rosie because this is the kind of person that we would treat as an inactive member. And that's the way the church treated her. One day the police called me up and said, do you know the whereabouts of Rosie? And I said, no, what's wrong? She's been missing for the last 5 days. It was Friday night. The police called me up and said, are you the pastor, her pastor? And I said, yes, I am. Would you come to the morgue and recognize Rosie's body? And would you please be there when their children show up? And I go, what is going on here? Well, I came to find out later that, and I think that's the reason the church couldn't come to grips with Rosie. We always have difficulties with people who, you understand, right? Maybe a second marriage, maybe just a lifestyle that's a little different. Well, she had gotten remarried, and we have these hang-ups. What can I say? But the son of the man she was married, what would that be? Stepson, had stole her car. And when she went to the house of a friend to retrieve it, he took out a .38 from the glove compartment, emptied it in her chest, put her in the trunk, drove out of town, and threw her in a ditch face down. For 5 days, she was in a ditch, and her face had conformed to the ground. It was flat. You could put a plate on it, and all of her face would touch the plate. You could only see where the nose was and the eyes. And so, of course, the police wanted somebody to be there when the children came. They're grown-ups, but this is their mom. And so I was distraught, and I called the church. We're going to hold a funeral. Please be there. And I was worried that the members, you know how we are, right? We'll show up for the people that we love, but the people we don't. And I said, their children are going to be sitting there alone in an empty church. So I called the members up, and I said, please be there. We're going to have a funeral. And I like to say that some of the members showed up, but the church was full of strangers. Full. There's a church bigger than this church, and we had to put chairs in the hallway, in the middle. We put chairs in the back, chairs in the foyer. We put 2 speakers in the parking lot because people couldn't fit in the church, and they sat in their cars. It was the first drive-by funeral that I've ever had. The chief of police, the mayor were there. And finally I asked, who was this Rosie that so many people... And we came to find out that Rosie was the most beloved social worker in all of those cities. And we kind of thought that she was an inactive member. Deadwood. Backslider. Are you with me? She was a daughter of God who was using her gifts wherever she was to minister to people. Folks, we need to get involved in people's lives that are not coming to church. Is that all right? Need to visit them, need to love them back. And that's not the job of a pastor. You know why? Because the job of a pastor would be ineffective. You go, what? Did you call our pastor ineffective? It's ineffective because of this. Because if he shows up to a person that's not coming to church, the person will say, it's your job to come here. Do you get it? So they won't take it as a genuine act. But when one of you, that it's not your job, goes to those homes they'll feel it's genuine interest. Do you get it or not? And then Bill, and these two have to go together. I have to tell the story because God, it just shows me how God is so desperate to save lost people. I have to tell you, I was going to Bill's house. We were going with Sonia, but Teresa is something else. We're going to Bill's house. I'm running late. I never like to get late, except this morning for the train. But anyways, so we're running late, and Sonia says, there's a Pure Imports. I wanted to get 2 lamps there. And I'm going, we're running late. No, but we can stop. I'll get the lamps and we'll run out. Now, who's the elder that's celebrating, 30th anniversary? Do you know that with time, and this is a good counsel for all the young people, you put it another way, but I have learned that happy wife, happy life. Okay, that's all there is to it. If you learn that in life, everything else will be good. Is that right? So I said, if Sonia's not happy, I'm not going to be happy today. We need to stop. So we stopped, and I'm telling her in Spanish, there's the lamp, and there's the other one. We're running to get it, and a lady hears us speaking in Spanish. And she says, "Usted habla español," in a Romanian accent. I had never heard anything like that. I had heard Spanish in an English accent, but Romanian was totally strange. And I go, yes, I do. And now she started talking. And she started when she was born. You know how those conversations go, right? Usually you can tell how long it is by the time when they start in their lifespan. If it's last week, it's going to be short. When they're born, it's a half an hour conversation. And so she started and telling how she landed up speaking in Spanish, how she moved to Asheville, North Carolina, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm desperate. So I'm putting these faces. You know, like those faces, like I'm really not interested in what you have to say? These kind of faces. Going and looking at the cash register faces. But she would not stop. It was like she was oblivious. So I have another tactic. When I want to get out of a conversation, I wait until they inhale. And when they inhale, I stretch my arm. It's so nice to meet you. Boom, and I take off. Get it? But this lady had the ability to talk inhaling. I had never, words came out of her mouth, and I could not a pause, not a visible pause, audible pause, nothing. And I was sweating already because I was looking at the time. We needed to get out of there. Do you know that I was so obvious that when I went to the cash register, you know what the lady said? She said, "I apologize that she stood you up." The lady at the cash register noticed how bad it was. But you know what she said? "But I'm glad you got to talk to Teresa because her husband died last week. And she needs someone to talk to." And I go, now, do you follow me? I could have been a better person, but I was ready to get out of there. I was worried to get to the place, and God had provided an opportunity, and I had fumbled it in the whole game. And I looked at the clock, and I looked at Teresa, and I can't go back. We went to Bill's house. And so Bill is sitting there, a man who has been attending meetings, and he just started telling us about his life. CEO for one of the biggest international bread companies, you know, like Wonder and all these huge bakeries. Multi-millionaire, has house in California, Colorado, and Asheville. And yet the house he's in right now, his car is like very expensive, but the house is like a little 2-bedroom house. And I'm going, he says, "I don't live here. My mom passed away." And she said, "Bill, please stay in my house till it's sold." She just kind of made him promise that because she had an attachment to the house. And he says, "But I'm been very successful." And you know, when people like that, you just don't know what to say to them. Because how do you start a conversation about spirituality or things like that? And so I'm quiet listening, and all of a sudden he slumps over. And I go, "Is he dying?" Almost like, and he mumbles, "But I am the worst trash that ever existed." And he started saying, "No one can love me, and I don't want anybody to get involved with my life." And he started telling us a story that evidently during the times that he was a CEO, he also got drunk, lost his wife, raised his children as a drunk. He didn't like any of his children, a father who doesn't like his children. But one daughter. And that one daughter, she was dating a fellow broke up with him and got Bill upset, where he never talked to his daughter again for 16 years. She had been married, he has a grandchild he never talked to. His other daughter is a drug addict, single mom, and what he does to not meet with her is he lets her stay in the houses he's not at. So like if he goes to California, she moves to Colorado. When he goes to Colorado, she moves to Asheville and so on. And he said, my son, I don't even know where he is. He's just lives his life. I send him money. He just sends me where, but I don't want to get in touch with her. I said, Bill, don't you think that maybe your daughter wants to hear from you? He says, even if she does, I don't want to ruin her life because I'm trash. And I said, can you ever believe that God loves you? He said, no. There's no way. There was nothing else. By that time, I went to another visit, I won't tell you, but it was about the same tenor, and I got tired. All my spirit was dry. I told Sonia, that's it for today. I can't visit one more person. That day, we had left the hotel asking God that he would give us 2 people that would give their lives to him. That's all we asked. Lord, just would you provide opportunity for 2 people? And none. Now, the next day, we went to the meetings. We were holding meetings in Asheville and in Hendersonville, if anybody's from that area. We went to Hendersonville first. At the end of the meeting, this tall lady runs to the front of the meeting and grabs a flower. And I said to Sonia, that's the lady from Pure Imports. Now, Pure Imports is 15 miles away. It's actually in Asheville, not in Hendersonville. And here she is. And she says, no, that's not. That is the lady from. So I went into the sanctuary and I said, hi there. Do you remember me? Oh, yeah, she said. And she started talking. And I said, okay. I need to leave because I need to have a meeting in another place. But let me ask you a question. How did you show up in this place? Did you recognize me from somewhere? That's why you stopped me at Pure Imports? I said, no, I've never seen you before. She said, and I wanted to come here, but my husband died to these meetings. And finally, I think I'm feeling better. And so I came. This is the first night. Amen. And I go, do you see what I'm talking about? That's scary stuff, isn't it? And I said, could I visit with you? And most people, when I tell them that, they go, okay, come like in next month. She says, when would you like to? And I said, whenever you'd like to. She said, tonight? I go, yeah, I finish like at 9:30. It's kind of late. Come at 9:30. I said, man, she really wants to talk. So at 9:30, we were in her house. But before I went to her house, listen to this. We go to the other meeting. A call is made. Guess who gets up? Bill. The guy who never got up. He gets up to give his life to Christ. So I sit by him and I say, hey, Bill. And he says, you won't believe what happened, yeah? And I go, no, tell me. As soon as you left, I went to get the mail. And there was a check from the state of North Carolina for $5,000. And I said, so they owed you money? No. There was no reason for them to give me that check. And he's a businessman, is that right? He knows where money comes from. He said there was just a check out of nowhere that they gave, and it called my attention. Do you follow me? Of course, a businessman, money would call their attention. And it just, I was thinking, why would anybody send me $5,000? And it says, as if God used that time, because at the moment he was looking, wondering, puzzled, why would he would get $5,000? His phone makes a sound of the text message. And it is his granddaughter from the daughter he had not spoken to 16 years. Grandpa, we would love to hear from you. And to him, that was like a shock from heaven. That was like a confirmation that God could love him. And he said, I just couldn't resist, he said. Guess what? The other person I visited that day that I'm not going to tell you about, he got a check for $1,500. And he gave his life to Christ. And I said, where's my check? Anyway, so that's just another thing altogether. But we went to Teresa's house after that. We said, we're going to spend a lot of time. So she never let us talk. Never let us talk. Never let us minister. Never let us give her a Bible study. This is how she started. She said, you know, people today, I went to that church, but people today don't eat the right stuff. And she says, and you need to lose weight. And I said, okay, that's fair enough. And she says, furthermore, they eat pork and they eat shrimp, but none of those things are good for consumption. And then she went on from diet to how many people actually keep the wrong day of the week. Because the Bible says it's Sabbath. And I go, Teresa, have you ever attended a church like the one you've gone? No, never attended it. But I think this is the truth. And that night, for 2 hours, she explained to us the Seventh-day Adventist message. I can tell you, all the points, the state of the dead, the Sabbath, foods, everything else. And she also said, in most churches, people are lazy and they should be working for the Lord, testifying for others. And I said, that's the Adventist message right there. And she said to me, do you think that church that I'm going to believes those things? I said, most of it. She said, do you think I could ever be a member of that church? I said, I'll talk to the pastor, see what we can work out for you. Next week, she got baptized. I'll tell you, she's an active, doesn't stop talking, but she's an active member. She will blow anybody away because she just is involved in church and loves the Lord. Are you getting it? And I'm thinking, how desperate is God that he would get people that are busy trying to buy things of this world? Are you with me or not? That he will bring people. So I believe that if you have that prayer and you open your eyes, God will lead people to you. So I've done that, but it didn't work out. Well, then I have to tell you, stop being a hermit. That's the only way it doesn't work. I mean, if you avoid people, are you with me? It isn't like God's going to, well, God may. And it happened to us, so I stopped that. For the longest time, when we went to work with Andrews in a Seventh-day Adventist ghetto, if I may call that, Andrews University in Berrien Springs, I thought there's nobody there. And so I just taught, but I wasn't involved in sharing the gospel except during meetings. One day, Sonia shows up at the desk and said, Ed, don't get mad. Why would I get mad? Because I think I had an accident. I said, well, I think you would be sure if you had an accident. She says, yes, I did have an accident. I go, well, let's go look at the car. She says, don't open the door. Why? The people are out there. I go, what people? The people we bumped into. Are the cars hooked together? They can't be said, no. It said they want to talk to you because they don't want, the insurance to get involved. It's a little thing. And so they came over here and blah, blah, blah. So we went out. It really wasn't nothing. But they said, let's just settle, and it was mutual, so everybody will take care of their own. I said, that's fine. And then they're looking at all the books that I have there. They said, what do? Do you collect books? Yeah, I said, I collect books to impress people. Has it impressed you? They said, no, not really. And I go, well, okay. And I said, what do you do? They said, and I was so nervous. I said, I teach evangelism. Evangelism to somebody that doesn't know anything about God, do you follow me, is like a strange word. They go, what? And I said, I teach people how to know Jesus as a personal friend. And the guy looks at his wife and says, honey, we need some of that ourselves. We need to know Jesus as a personal friend. Could you teach us that? And we started a Bible study. And when they left, you know what Sonia said? What a wonderful way to meet people. I said, no, that doesn't work very well. I would rather we be intentional and keep our cars in a fit condition. Is that all right? But anyways, so sometimes God will interrupt in our lives to even bring people. So just hang out where people hang out. At maybe, and by the way, I showed this in the Seventh-day Adventist church. Somebody scolded me because ice cream is not appropriate food for human consumption. It's poison. But they're not eating ice cream. It's actually mashed potatoes. It just looks like ice cream. It's a mashed potato ice cream shop. But just go somewhere where people hang out. Is that all right? You don't have to eat the ice cream. I have a class in personal evangelism. A young lady came to me and said, Ed, you know what? You were talking about this. And I went, to a coffee shop. Okay, so she was just drinking. I don't know what she was drinking. I really don't care. But anyways, the waiter came, and they started talking. And she says, it's wonderful because all I had to do is listen for a little bit. And he agreed that he wanted to know Christ. And we started a Bible study with the waiter at a coffee shop. When I told that story somewhere, they said, she shouldn't be drinking coffee. Are we missing the boat somewhere? And I know some of you are going to say, we don't want to hear that man again because he said we should drink coffee. That's not about that, folks. It's not about drinking coffee. It's about making ourselves available to God's children. And you can actually have soda. I don't even think that's good stuff. Anyways, so go shopping. You know, that's the big thing is our lifestyle. To be honest with you, our lifestyle is so radically different that we have a hard time because we don't eat the things that people eat. We don't listen to the things that people listen to. But I go to a tattoo parlor to do ministry. Is that okay, folks? Do you want to see my tattoo? Would you like to? Come on. You want to see my tattoo, right? I don't have one. I don't have one. In all of my body, I don't have a tattoo. And they respect it. But I have learned to talk to people. You don't have to do what the world does when you come in contact with the world. Is that all right? You can be uncompromising in your faith. And so go shopping. How do you go shopping? Well, there's people walking all the time. Have you seen anybody walk in your neighborhood do exercise? Any one of you? Do you do exercise? Well, then do it at the same time. Just run beside him and say, hi, I do exercise too. And you know what? I don't want to do it alone. Can we just exercise together? And then when you talk, maybe you'll have a common interest or something. Just give God the opportunity that if he wants to do something, that you will be close enough to minister to those people. Or at the, court, whatever that court may be. This one, Adventist Love. This is Vancouver Seventh-day Adventist Church, not Vancouver, Canada, Vancouver, Washington, right on the other side of Portland. They have what they call a vegetable garden club. And I love it. They have almost 300 members. Most of them are not from the church. What they do is, this is how they hook you into it. And they try to hook me, and they have me hooked. They said that somewhere in the spirit of prophecy, Ellen G. White gives you the secret of how to grow a tree or a plant in 1/4 of the time. Have any of you found that? I haven't either. But they said it's there. And they go to their friends and they say, we can actually grow a plant in 1/4 of the time healthy. And so they have this vegetable garden club where they share secrets of how to grow better plants. And then they bring the vegetables, share with each other, and also for those less fortunate. Isn't that wonderful? And a lot of people love to do that. They have 300 people who come to that club on a weekly basis, share different secrets of gardening and so on. And so I said, I'm not from here, so can you tell me? They never told me you have to be a member. I kid you not, I begged them for it. I have been calling them, listen, I don't even live there. Come on, I can't be a member. Just tell me. They said, no, you have to be a member. They never told me. So still my plants have to take their time to grow. Or be a blessing. Bring a blessing to someone through the Bible Courier Program. Now this afternoon I'm going to talk just a little bit about it. It's a wonderful thing. How many of you are familiar with Pablo Goya's church? Lexington Seventh-day Adventist Church. Lexington Seventh-day Adventist Church, I won't tell you where they were, but before Pablo Goya arrived, and when he arrived there, they didn't believe in evangelism. They said it. The evangelism doesn't work. And basically, it was a normal Seventh-day Adventist church. And Pablo Goya prayed, and they prayed together every Sunday at 6 o'clock with the elders. And then they prayed, what shall we do, Lord? And they were open. And so Pablo, because we're friends for a long time, called me up and says, we've been praying, and we have the impression you should come over and teach us how to do personal evangelism. And I said, well, because of our lifestyle, most of our people are separated from people, so the best thing is just the Bible Courier Program. And I'm not going to tell you how it works, but we started that program in his church, and Pablo Goya received 145 cards requesting Bible studies in the first mailing. And you say, well, many churches have done that. It doesn't really work. 3 months later, he still had 135 Bible studies, personal Bible studies that they were giving. And in the next year, they baptized over, 45 or 50 people for the first time in the Lexington church. And they believe in this. They believe that as long as they put people out there. And I have to say that a doctor came afterwards and said, this is the easiest thing I've ever done in my life. It's just common sense that how to get in touch with people. So I'm going to be sharing a little bit about that. Not the whole thing. Is that all right? And if someday you want me to come and do it, I'll do the thing. But what an easy way just to get in contact with people. You don't go door to door. It's simple. It's just natural. Anyways. Or attend a seminar. Make friends at a seminar like that guy. Now, you know what I don't get, folks? Or like that guy copying the answers. You know what I don't get is this. We have a stop smoking clinic and none of you go. Did you get that one or not? Well, of course you don't go. You're not smokers. You should attend not because you're smokers. You should attend so those people that are attending can make friends with you. You can go out to eat mashed potatoes on Saturday night, cold mashed potatoes. Because then the people will take an interest. Are you with me? That's why you attend, not because you're not a smoker. When you attend the Revelation seminar, you probably heard it already. If you've been in the Adventist, you've heard every Revelation seminar there is. Are you with me? And if it doesn't get any better, you're not interested. It's not about it getting better or you finding out something you didn't find out. I have found that when people sit by people that are attending the seminar, most of those people who sit by a Seventh-day Adventist get baptized. Now, I've been doing this for 23 years, so I'm talking out of experience. And do you know why they get baptized? Because somehow, after the meeting's over, you see them talking with each other. And the greatest thing for a person is to know that if they ever join this church, they already have a friend that they can sit by. It's very difficult to join a church of strangers. Do you get it or not? And I'm thinking, we don't have to go door to door. Just attend the seminar, and you'll make friends for Jesus. Or, well, I have friends that need the Lord, but I just don't know what to say. Have you had that? You have colleagues at work and so on, and, well, I just don't know what to say. I'm just nervous about bringing up spiritual conversations or losing their friendship because, I talk to them about the Sabbath and so on. Well, then don't talk. Listen. There it is. Yeah, like that. No, I kid you not. Listen like that. I spent a long time finding that picture. Not to make you laugh. Listen like that. Okay, watch. I'm going to help you out. Is that right? I have found, people say, well, people don't like to talk. They don't like to share. They don't like to share is because we don't let them. It goes something like this. You have a friend at work, right? And they go, man, last week was a tough week. I mean, I had a headache and I wasn't feeling well. I was nauseous. What's the next thing? What's the next thing? Oh, I felt that way too. Oh, I had a headache like you would not believe. It was terrible. I couldn't even open my eyes. Oh, no, but my headache was terrible. I mean, I lost all my hair, says the other guy. Oh, that's nothing. I got up and my feet were still in bed. That's how bad mine was. Do you follow me? It's the one over you conversation. Have you heard that? Horrible conversation. No wonder people don't share. Because we seem to be in a competitive mode to see who can share more. Someone comes up to you and says, they're for Fort Wayne, right? I went to Indianapolis last weekend. You know what I'm saying, right? And then what do you say? Oh, that's nice. I went to Hawaii just for the weekend. And then it stops. Watch this. There it is. This is for real, folks. Watch this. I went to Indianapolis last weekend. Really? Did you get that one? Now you try that. I went to Indianapolis last weekend. Come on, give me that, give me that. Wow, look, is that all right? Wow, Now you don't have to do that to think you're crazy, is that all right? But just give them that, really? That's nice. What did you do in Indianapolis? Are you with me? And guess what? They start pouring out their heart because all you've told them is, I care. Did you get it? I care to hear what you have to say. And if you care in little things, they might care about bigger things. Are you with me or not? I have found not a person in this world, even the hardest people, to start spiritual conversation with them. I was going to Australia, and they called me up, Victor, said, come on over and have a friendship seminar. When I got my airline ticket, the departmental calls me up and says, that doesn't work here in Australia. I go, why didn't you tell me before I got my airline ticket? Maybe I could have saved some time. Why did you invite me? No, because it isn't like the States. In the States, most people talk about religion like if it were nothing. In Australia, it's like bad. It's like somebody asking you, did you have intimacy with your wife last night? You go, mind your own business. That's the way if you say about God to Australians. Is that all right? So they said, it's not going to work here. You just can't talk to people. And now I'm worried. I'm getting on the plane because I had to. I sit by a person, and when they ordered something, they had an Australian accent. So I said, I got to try this out. Excuse me. I'm not going to bug you the whole flight, but I just want to know something. Is it true that most Australians believe they should not talk to strangers about God or religious things? She said, I don't know, I'm from New Zealand. And I said, well, what about the people from New Zealand? He says, it's true. It's true. And she stopped right there, dead. She wasn't going to mention another word. She knew I was probably, do you follow me? So I said, huh. So most people in New Zealand are atheists. Did you get that one or not? Yeah. That's a bait question that needs to be corrected. No, they're not. Many are Christians. She corrected me. I said, really, are you one of them? Why, as a matter of fact, I am. And I said, you mean you believe in God and Jesus and angels and all those things? Yes, I do. And I said, like, have you ever experienced an angel close to you? And she started telling me how one time she experienced an angel and answered a prayer for 8 hours. Talking about God, angels, and we shared our faith together. And I said, boy, she talks a lot about God for people that don't talk about God. I said, okay, so that may have been a fluke, right? So they forgot me. They were supposed to pick me up and take me to the seminar. I guess they asked 2 people, and each one of them thought the other one would. So then I'm stuck. 7 o'clock, the seminar is starting. So I call a taxi. I thought maybe they had forgotten. Maybe they forgot on purpose. But anyway, so the taxi driver's taking me. And I said, sir, can I ask you a question? How do you feel when, like, people sit in the back seat over here and they start talking about God? I stop the taxi and get them down. They're obnoxious people, think they have to correct everybody. I go, uh-oh, because I got to get to the seminar. This is not a good time to try this. You know, if he stops, kicks me out, I'm in big trouble. So I said, okay, all right. Excuse me, hate to inconvenience you. What do you do when you reach the end of the line? She says, what do you mean? Yeah, when you have no more. All you try has been exhausted, and you just don't know what to do. He says, I don't know what to do. And then he started. Like my daughter, she's getting a divorce. Her children are, the house is being broken up. I don't know what to do. I'm just at the end of my line. And I guess he says people get that way, don't they? And I said, they sure do. Now, by that time, I was recognizing that the place was 2 blocks away. So I said, I'm going to try something. And if he kicks me out, I can walk 2 blocks and still make it. So I said, sir, if God could help, would you try? And he says, what do you mean? Would you let me pray for you? I was that blunt. And you know what the guy did? Right to the side of the curb. And I said, walking it is. And he stopped the car, but he didn't tell me to get out. So I started praying. See, he didn't kick me out. And the guy was in tears. And he said, nobody has ever done that for me. He said, can I stay? I said, where? Wherever you're staying, I want to stay. I want to drive you back. I want you to talk to me more about that God. Did you get that? For Australians. So I just found out, folks, that if you lend an ear and you show them you care, are you with me? Just simply that you care. I want to tell you one last story, and then we'll go on, because this is a big thing. Yolanda was a young lady who was a daughter of a Seventh-day Adventist. She was not. And the mother said, would you see my daughter? She tried to commit suicide. She's in the hospital. That's the worst visit you'll ever do as a pastor. Because people who try to commit suicide, it's very depressing. You know why? Because they never get anything right, and they just fumbled on another one because they're still alive. So when I went to visit, I opened the door. She looked at me and says, who are you? I said, I'm the pastor from your mom's church. And he said, get out. And for a moment, I thought I'd get out. But then I said, what am I going to tell the mom? Like I showed up and left. So I was more conscious of myself than her. And I didn't want to go back. So you know what I did? I didn't pay no attention. I just went in. And I sat down. There was a chair there. And she looked at me and says, are you still here? I said, it looks like it. She said, do whatever you want. And I thought inside of me, I'll just stay there 15 minutes, and then I'll leave. And then I'll be able to say, I visited your daughter. Are you with me? That's what was going through my mind. What a selfish thought. But even in a selfish manner, with a selfish thought, something was happening that I did not realize. She looked up after 15 minutes, and I was just reading my Bible. She said, you still here? Yep. And she opened up and told me her story. Do you know what just happened? Did you get that one or not? She knew I had come because her mom had sent. Do you follow me? And she didn't want to put up at this point in her life with somebody who had no interest. And all of a sudden, because I stayed there, she thought I cared when I really didn't. So I read her the Bible. After she shared, she said, I'm a failure. My husband beats me up on a daily basis. I have no education. I can't leave. The only thing I could do is just try to commit suicide to end this life. And I'm a failure at that. And so I said, God can do something for you. And she said, so can he make me the President of the United States? I said, no, you'll probably never be the President of the United States. But he can do something for you. And I read the story of Paul on the road to Damascus when Jesus met him. And I said, I know that at this time in your life it's very difficult to understand, but God can do something for you if you just let him. And I prayed for her. And she says, I'm willing to let him do something for me. And I went back the next day and she was not there. Called her mom up. She says, I can't tell you where she's at. She left the house. You understand what happened, right? She left the house and went into a shelter. And usually they won't share that information with anybody because then the husband will show up, try to beat her up again. And so she said, you probably won't be able to talk with her. And that's all right, I said. So I just let it go. 3 months later, I'm walking down the stairs of the University of New Mexico. I was taking a computing course. I was dumb enough to take a computing course in programming. I had bought a computer, and I took a course in programming. Yeah, I know. Most of you are laughing. Most of you are going, no, should have taken a course on applications. Are you with me? Programming. So I took a whole semester to learn how to make a calculator with like 5 pages of DOS programming that only adds and subtracts. It doesn't even multiply. What a frustrating thing. But I'm walking down the stairs, and a young lady comes to me, blonde young lady. Says, hi there. Do you remember me? And I go, no. And it's always embarrassing when people tell you, do you remember? And at my age, that happens a lot. And I go, no, but you came and visited me. And now I'm really embarrassed. And I go, really? Where did I come visit you? At the hospital. I'm going, no, I never met that young lady. She said, you came and visited me because I tried to commit suicide. And now it dawned. You know what had happened is her husband had beat her up and she was just, had blotches on her face was swollen. It was in a terrible condition. And so now she was just normal. And I said, is that you, Yolanda? She said, it's me. And I said, so tell me. She said, you know, after you left, Jesus started doing something for me. I had faith, left that abusive situation. I was provided with a grant by the government. I'm actually now studying to be a secretary. And in my first semester and having a lot of success. And I'm attending church. And I would have wished she were attending the Adventist church. She was not. But I'm attending church. And Jesus is transforming my life. Jesus is transforming my life. That's what God wants to do for people. And what a blessing it is just to be a part of that. If we would just listen and pray. I'll share the rest of this afternoon. May God bless you.
Good morning. Happy Sabbath. We have a couple of announcements. You will look in your bulletin.